Hi, and welcome to another episode of eCom at One. And today's guest is Lauren Schwartz, founder and creative director at the Loft 325. How you doing, Lauren?
Good. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. Thanks for joining us on the eCom at One podcast. Um,
Yeah, excited to be here.
we were just having our weather chat, weren't we? Like we always like to start with a little bit of weather chat, see how we're doing around the globe. And yeah, you've got definitely doing better than we are in the UK here.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be nice today.
So, how did you get into creative advertising? How did you find your passion for creative advertising?
Yeah, I started in the e-commerce space about 15 years ago and literally did, website design, landing pages, excuse me, and email marketing. And I started working at an agency, and that's kind of where I, really kind of figured out that advertising and, paid advertising was something that I was super passionate about. Just because, there's so many things that you have to think about when you're actually making ad creative for businesses that really that's kind of where it all started. It was just kind of more, like it was kind of like a fun game to me, figuring out what works for people and what doesn't work. And it really tests your creative abilities. So that's really how I got started was, working at an agency and just
Yeah.
figuring out that this was fun.
Yeah, you enjoyed it, which is important.
Yeah.
So obviously, working in an agency to having your own agency, obviously that made that transition, and I think quite a lot of our listeners will relate to that, where they've maybe worked in an e-com store and then or work doing something to do with e-commerce, and then the next thing they know, they've set up, they've installed or paid for the subscription for Shopify or whatever it may be, and then next thing you know, they're doing £1 million a month or whatever it may be. Maybe not overnight usually, but in time. So I think obviously our listeners are very much focused on e-commerce. Why would you say it's so important for e-commerce companies to focus the time and effort on that creative side when it comes to ads? I think going into the interface and create or interfaces and creating ads, relatively straightforward to get an ad up and running. Obviously making it profitable is a whole nother
Yeah.
game. So why would you say, why do you need to spend the time and effort on the creative side?
I think the biggest thing is, especially for e-commerce stores is that, or e-commerce in general, the first thing you notice when you're looking at ad creatives or ads is the creative. And
Yeah.
that's really like the thing that stops you in your feed, stops the scroll. It's super important to get people to be interested in your product and your brand. And the first way to do that is obviously creative. So it is super important to invest in your creative because that is really what's going to stop people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a lot of people miss that bit. I think they sort of using stock photographs or stock video and just, oh yeah, we found this new targeting and, we're going to run an ad and we use the same creative, or there's no investment there in the creative. And people
Yeah.
just get very tired very quickly, don't they? I think.
Yeah, and people are a lot more tech savvy and just I feel ad savvy where they can, spot an ad quickly in their feed, and if it looks too much like an ad, they're just going to scroll right past it. And so I think, making sure that you're always designing for the platform you're on as well
Yeah.
is always really important too, which again, some e-commerce stores they just think, like you said, like you can take stock footage, you can take kind of just a random image and kind of throw it in there and think that it's going to work. But there really is a strategy to designing for the platforms
Yeah.
and, investing in that creative and really understanding the platform and how it works,
Yeah.
I think is why you should invest in that for sure.
So I think I know a lot of our listeners will be running Facebook ads as an example. Is there any
Mhm.
sort of quick hit sort of go-to things that they should be looking at specifically for creating creative for Facebook ads?
Yeah, so I think for Facebook again, it's definitely you don't want to be served an ad. And so again, I think making things look really native to the platform
Yeah.
is always really beneficial. The biggest thing that I've noticed, especially for Facebook and Instagram, is user generated content. It's definitely something that people, they see and it looks like someone's talking about just a product that they found. And again, it just looks like someone's sharing information or
Yeah.
sharing
Yeah.
something that they found. So I think that that's something that, again, like a lot of businesses I work with, it takes a while to kind of get them to do content creation and user generated content, but hands down, it is the best
Yeah.
formula for
Yeah.
ad creatives.
Yeah. It sounds so obvious when you say it, but I think so many, yeah, doesn't it? It just does. I
Yeah.
think, just too much too many, almost like too polished of a creative. Whereas if you've got, a real life testimonial or feedback, or the product being used, a video of something happening somebody that's bought the product, they're unboxing it and using it, the children are using it, the family are using it, whatever, obviously all different products, different things. It's just believable, isn't it? It's because it's
Yeah.
real, it's that they can touch, they can sort of see. That's the sort of thing. I have to admit, I'm a bit of a this is really geeky, but I'm really into. Well, I don't know. In fact, shall I go there? Yeah, let's go there. So I'm really into my grass, as in my garden grass, that is.
Yeah.
And the adverts I'm seeing about all the different sort of toys you can get to improve your grass. Some of the ads I've seen are just really boring, of box shots of the products. But then when you've got some enthusiastic guy who's clearly just brought the product, talking about, wow, look at this, it did that. Maybe they might be a bit staged, some of them, but some of them clearly are sort of user generated, and that user generated content, you buy in, don't you? This guy's a bit like me. He's a bit of a geek when it comes to his grass. Do you know what? I'll give it a go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they do so well, because again, obviously, probably someone's either, they either paid them or, they're just talking about the product. But really though, like if you give genuine testimonial and genuine feedback, people are gonna understand and be like, oh yeah, like I can relate to that, or I can understand how that person felt, or this, it benefits them that way. This is gonna benefit me this way. So yeah, it's definitely like I said, it's the best form of content that I use on a daily basis.
Okay, so you've worked on a lot of campaigns. You said you've been at this 15 years, and
Yeah.
obviously running your own place for quite a while now. What would you say some of the best campaigns you've worked on, and what were the reasons they generated the best results?
Yeah. So actually, when I worked at the agency, we had a brand that was just starting out, and they had a lot of backing behind them, a lot of money backing behind them. So it was something that they thought like, oh well, we have all this money, we can just kind of throw whatever out there and it's going to work. But really, it was a women's healthcare brand, and I feel like for something like that, you need to really talk to your audience.
Yeah.
And so for us, when I started working on the account, I took a look at all the creatives. And honestly, the biggest thing that I saw was that, I'm a woman and I know the needs that I have. And for me, it was just kind of dumbing it down a little bit and just really kind of thinking like, okay, well, why would I want this product? Why would I want to use it? And for them, it was really just taking their imagery and putting very, kind of in your face headlines that kind of grabbed people's attention. Like it wasn't even like videos, it wasn't anything that was super crazy. It was just a still image with really in your face copy that was kind of like, oh, whoa, like shocking a bit, but it worked. Like we started out with them, they were spending, I don't know, maybe like 10K a month. And we boosted them like over $1 million within the first year, which, and again, like I think one of the ads that we did is still running because it's just super effective. And so it's, that was probably one of like the first campaigns that I worked on that I was like, I took it from nothing to, a huge growth. And it was really exciting. So again, sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to be this crazy production. Sometimes it could just be a really nice static image with a really in your face headline that could essentially make it so that people kind of stop and then want to check you out.
Yeah. Brilliant. There's nothing more exciting, isn't there, than taking a brand that's spending say 10K or 100 and whatever grand a year, and then turning that into $1 million, £1 million is so cool.
Yeah.
It's so
yeah.
cool.
It was awesome. It was definitely like my first time where I was like, oh my gosh, like I really helped a brand, like it was like so exciting for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. So I think sort of coming up with the like a formula for creating creative is always a struggle. I think, I know when we look at accounts and speak to brands, I do think that stores really struggle to come up with creative ideas. Would you say that there's a formula for creating sort of create, especially on video? I think is always a thing that, if people haven't got that facility or ability in house, do you have like a proven formula or a formula that your go-to sort of strategy, structure, formula, framework, or whatever you want to call it, to build out Facebook ads using video?
Yeah, I think, again, the great thing about Facebook, well, I mean, before the iOS 14 update, it was great. Now there's lots of issues, but I think the best thing is really just kind of capturing people's attention, especially for video. So the thing that I actually look for now is TikTok. So a lot of people are really against TikTok, but if you go onto that platform, you get sucked in to the video content that these people, produce, the creators that are on there, and they just know how to stop the scroll. And so for me, a lot of the inspiration that I pull for some of my Facebook ads for video is actually looking on TikTok, looking at some of the hashtags of what people are actually doing, what some of the trends are, and then taking those trends and translating them for Facebook. And again, that's like, they know how to stop the scroll. I mean, if you talk to anyone who goes on TikTok, they're like, oh, I was sucked in and went down this rabbit hole of, being on there for hours. And it's true. Like, I mean, I'll be honest, like I look on there all the time and I'm like, oh shoot, it's been an hour and I've been not doing anything. So
Yeah.
like, they're just really good with that sort of thing. So for me, I always, I look at the trends, I look at what their competitors are doing. It's really actually a lot of research. So before I start a brand, I look at all their assets. I look at, their competitors. I look and see like what exactly, they're trying to showcase.
Yeah.
And I really look at all their videos and try to see if I can pull out like what are the benefits, what are their value props, there's definitely things that you need to tell your
Yeah.
audience. And if you're not sharing that information, then people are just going to scroll right past you.
Looking at the Facebook ads library specifically to look at
Yes,
what your competitors are doing, and then analyzing sort of headlines,
exactly.
content, copy, calls to action, obviously the
Yeah,
imagery,
it's,
how
yeah,
long the
it
ads have been
usually
running.
takes, yeah, it usually takes me about a week to kind of go through and even start a client, because I do take a lot of time to research everything and make sure that I know who their client is, I know who their customer is, and figure out like who their audience is, and really just kind of get all of that information from the beginning,
Yeah.
so that the first thing we can do is just really start to creative test what we think would work for their brand.
Yeah. Fantastic. Fantastic. So a lot of e-commerce stores, a lot of ad creatives, a lot of ads live over the years. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see e-com stores particularly making when it comes to creating their ads? What are the sort of go-to, they're doing that, I think, when you get access to a new ad account, if you've got these things that you go, oh, they're making this mistake that our listeners can avoid, hopefully. What would you recommend? What would you say?
Yes, definitely. There's a lot of them. I think the biggest mistake for most brands that I notice is actually taking their features and their benefits and putting them into one. So they definitely are very different. And I think, a lot of brands, because they're so involved in their own company, it's hard for them sometimes to take a step back and really figure out what it is they're trying to say and how they're trying to convey it. And if you do have a product, I mean, most products have a feature and most of them have benefits, and really dissecting what is what, I think is really important. Like a feature is, how does it work? How does it function? What are the things that you need to do, as far as like, is there, like, I don't know, for a vacuum cleaner or something, like what are the parts, like all whatever. And then the benefits is, obviously, how does it benefit me? What is it going to do for my life? How is it going to make my life easier? And a lot of times, brands that I first start out with, they put both of those together and they try to get it all in one ad. And it's just so much information for someone to digest in less than 15 seconds that people are going to just miss what you're trying to say. Yeah. So that's definitely one of the biggest things I noticed. And not showing your product within the first 3 seconds. I mean, I always tell my clients, you have less than a second to get someone's attention. And the first thing you need to do is put that product right in their face in the first 3 seconds, because if not, they're not going to take, 5, 10, 15 seconds to watch your ad. If it doesn't interest them, they're just going to go right past you. So those are, I think, the 2 biggest mistakes that I see when I'm looking at ad accounts to start.
So I would say pause right now, guys, if you're listening in, those video ads you've got running, are the products that are there. We've got to wait 10 minutes or 5 seconds or more. I think that's just a real quick one, isn't it? A real quick one to check. It's so obvious, really, in that, if you don't see that product quickly and those feature benefits, we talk about features and benefits a lot on the podcast. And I think, they do get mixed up or they don't get split. So yeah, great. What is, I don't know how to even pronounce it. AIDA.
AIDA.
AIDA. What is AIDA and how does it work in practical sense?
Yeah, so AIDA is actually a very old marketing term. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's like, I think Ogilvy actually was the one who came up with it. I can't remember, but it's definitely a very old term. So it's action, interest, desire. Attention, interest, desire, and then action. So attention is obviously what grabs your attention. Interest is obviously, am I interested in this product? Am I not interested in this product? Desire is kind of more like the benefits. How does it, benefit me? Is it, an actionable type of item? And then obviously the action is the call to action, shop now, learn more. So it definitely is translated into how, into digital advertising now. Yeah. We definitely try to focus on, when we're creating these creatives, like, are we kind of following the AIDA model? It is such an old term and it is very relevant. And I think it's just more now of how fast you get people to actually take all of those, that framework and do it as quickly as possible. I a lot of times say, like, we have to get them in less than a second. And if you don't grab their attention in less than a second, then like interest, desire, and action is kind of out the window. Like you won't, like nothing's really going to happen if you can't get their attention first. Yeah. So it definitely is. It's an old model, but it definitely does apply still.
Brilliant. Yeah, makes sense. So Pinterest is not really something personally I spend any time on. I'm saying that out loud, but it's true. But I know, it really is, from listening to some of my team, it really seems to be a bit of a hidden gem when it comes to e-commerce. How can e-commerce stores leverage the platform? What sort of tips would you give for Pinterest?
Yeah, again, it's always making sure that you're designing for the platform. So Pinterest is very much the platform of DIYers, kind of those like, home tutorials, any sort of like inspiration. So for when I design for that platform, I actually mostly use static imagery because that is what, as you're scrolling through that feed, that's kind of what you're looking for. You're looking for that really great, lay down, or you're looking for that really nice, house tour or whatever. You're just really kind of like looking at those images and really wanting to see like, oh, okay, like this looks really nice. And like, how do I put that into like my home or my life or whatever? Yeah. And so for Pinterest, it's definitely a lot of static imagery that I use. And I also use really big headlines, again, like things that are, one is I work for, I have a client who does outdoor furniture, and, a lot of the ads that we run on there is, inspirational tips for your outdoors, or, the best outdoor furniture for any weather, like stuff like that is things that people will kind of, as they're scrolling through, they're like, oh, like I live in, a really cold climate, like this furniture is going to be the best one. Like, oh, what is it? And then you click on it and then, it takes you to that product. So
Yeah.
it definitely is, again, designing for the feed and designing for that platform is very, very important.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So you touched on TikTok already, but what would you say, a year from now, a couple of years from now, where do you see TikTok going? Where do you see the benefit and the focus for e-commerce stores?
I don't see TikTok going anywhere. Again, I think some people are still kind of, hesitant about TikTok, but honestly, with the iOS 14 update, there's been so many issues with reporting on Facebook. And, I know they're trying to fix that. I know things are trying to get solved. But a lot of my clients right now are actually going onto TikTok and going to that platform because they see the value in all the people that are on TikTok. And I think just the buying power, I mean, there are a lot, I think, when you think of TikTok, you think of, oh, it's just dancing. It's just dancing and, these like teenagers like hopping on there doing whatever. But really, there's actually a lot of people on TikTok. A lot of older people are on TikTok. And, they have that buying power. And,
Yeah.
A lot of times too, like even the teenagers who are on there, they have buying power as well. And so I think it's just one of those platforms that, especially for ads, it's still a little bit of the wild, wild west,
Yeah.
but I am seeing more and more people going to TikTok because they know that that's a platform that is going to do really well. And, it's something that they should definitely be on for sure.
Yeah. I think a lot of people here in the UK, sort of agency wise, jumped on the sort of TikTok, sent a lot of emails around sort of saying, oh, do you want to sign up as an ad provider? A lot of people sort of massage that to say, oh, we're a TikTok partner. So hang on a minute, you're not a TikTok partner. You just got the same email that the other 10,000 or 50,000 agencies got. And then they were shouting about the fact that they're big, TikTok partners. And then they've gone very quiet, I've noticed, this last few months, because the reality of ROAS and the reality of, somebody's got to foot the bill at the end of the day. So it's been an interesting, few interesting things going on here, but I profess not to be anything. I don't use TikTok myself. Do you have an account personally? Do you use it? Do you upload?
Honestly, I just use it to scroll it and see like
You
what
got an
trends
account just
are.
to look. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I probably should have, to be fair, in all honesty. I probably should have to look, of course, to look at see what's going on, but I haven't at the moment. Right. So going back to the creative piece, I think so a lot of great ideas of how to come up with ideas, but then when it comes down to actually creating the actual creative, the actual video, the actual imagery, have you got any tools that you would recommend to our listeners to use, tools that can help the process, speed the process up, simplify the process?
Yeah. So obviously I'm a designer. And so by trade, I use Adobe Suite. That's
Yeah.
my main go-to. I use Premiere and After Effects, but
Yeah.
there are a lot of times, if you are trying to make something look native to the feed, I truthfully use TikTok. I do use TikTok to create ads where I just edit everything. I shoot it on my iPhone. I edit everything in the app and then I just save it.
Yeah.
And then again, same with Instagram Reels. But there's also another really great tool called CapCut, which again, it's an app that you can download and you can shoot everything on your iPhone. And it has so many of the same things from TikTok. I actually think someone from TikTok created it so that everything looks really native to the platform. So
Yeah.
again, I use that a lot as well, where I just edit on my phone because
Yeah.
it just makes it so easy. And I mean, iPhones have such great cameras already that like you don't necessarily need to pay a high production studio. So yeah, those are really kind of the tools that I use.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Lauren. I like to end every episode on a book recommendation. Do you have a book that you would recommend to our listeners?
Ooh, I'm reading one actually right now. It's called Think Like a Monk, which is like totally random, but it's actually a really, really good book. And it's about a man who he was a monk for I think 3 or 4 years and decided to live that lifestyle and then really take all the learnings that he had from it and kind of apply it to his life. And it's honestly, it's a great read. And I definitely think everyone should take the time to read it because it definitely is, especially in this world of marketing, it's a good way to kind of reassess the way that you think about things in your life. So
I like the sound of that already. I can see simplifying your life and getting rid
yeah.
of a lot of I would imagine, I don't obviously not read the book, but I can imagine, that's the next thing I'll be doing after we stop the episode. Well, thanks, Lauren. For the guys that are listening, want to find out more about yourself, more about what you do, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so my website is the Loft 325. That's my website. And then Twitter actually is also a really great way
Yep.
to reach out. It's just Loft 325. So
Fantastic.
those are probably the best ways.
Lovely. Well, thank you for being a guest on eCom at One, and I look forward to possibly catching up with you again, maybe in a year or so, and we'll see